You ready? Okay, welcome everybody. Got a really fun Hopium Chronicles event today. This is part of our Make June Count campaign where we're challenging our family to leave it all on the playing field in June and try to go out and talk to all these new voters that are going to be checking in because of the crazy events of the day. But with me is an old friend, Jane Kleeb, who's going to talk to us today about something that is, in my mind, something we should be calling the eighth battleground state, Nebraska. Jane, welcome. Thank you for being here today.
Thanks, Simon. It's so good to see you. And we go back way, way back when I was the head of the Young Dems, and now both of us have kids in college. So,
Well, I describe myself as formerly young, not,
exactly.
and I think we're going to be formerly young for a long time, Jane. And but tell us about Nebraska. Why should people care? Talk about how instrumental it is both in winning the presidency and in flipping the House this cycle.
Nebraska is this unique state. So when you think of Nebraska and you hear Nebraska, you're probably thinking, corn, cattle, and Husker football. And we have all three of those things. But we also have this very unique thing, similar to Maine, where we split our electoral votes. So we have what we lovingly call the Jomaha Blue Dot in Omaha, and it has a little bit of Sarpy County and all of Saunders County, which is a rural county. But that blue dot went for Joe Biden in 2020. It went for Barack Obama in 2008. And in a 269 type presidential race, literally Nebraska can be the decision maker on whether or not we have not only Joe Biden in the White House, but people like Tony Vargas who can flip that congressional seat. It matters if we're going to have 17 Democrats back in the legislature to be able to filibuster really bad bills. And so Nebraska is at the kind of epicenter. And to be really clear, we're the cheapest battleground state. So your dollars really go a long way in a state like Nebraska.
And how's it going? I mean, people don't really, I saw the only public polling that I think I've seen was a Republican pollster just a week ago, had Biden up 5 in the district. I mean, what's your sense about how things are going just politically, and also you're a great organizer, right? I mean, we've known each other a long time. Talk about your plan, and if people invest in you, what they're going to get for it.
Yeah. So we are narrow focused and laser focused on the second congressional district and really our state legislature. And I'll tell you a little bit about that. So, the second congressional district, mostly Omaha, where Democrats have a partisan edge. Joe Biden, maybe in some of the other polls, doesn't visually look great. And in the second congressional district, he's continuing to hold his ground. He beat Trump in wide margins by about 4 to 5 points last time around. And we think it's going to be the same this time around. There's a lot of kitchen table voters in the second congressional district. You have not only folks who might work for a Fortune 500 company like Union Pacific and other Fortune 500s here, but you have a lot of small business, mom and pop, restaurants and stores in what we call North and South Omaha. That's our African American and our Latino and union communities. And then you have military voters in Sarpy County, and then rural voters in Saunders. And so if you just take a step back, it's like this is literally a slice of the American electorate. So we have to deploy all sorts of different tactics. For North and South Omaha, that is very community-based, very neighborhood-based. Literally block by block could change in those communities. And so we lead with folks who are trusted messengers, because as you know, and I know as an organizer, it's one thing to have a message and it's one thing to have polls, but it's the messenger that matters, right? It's the person at the door. It's the person at the community meeting. It's the person at the voter registration booth at the block party. That matters way more than any message that might be handed down to us from up above. So we're focused on really hiring trusted messengers, neighborhood leaders as the canvassers, as the organizers. We're doing a lot of voter registration, and that's something that our party has just never had the money to do. So, when years ago, when things started to shift to more C3 groups to do voter registration, it was a big mistake, a strategic mistake for us as Democrats, because that first interaction with a voter, that partisan interaction of convincing people and telling people why they should be joining our party and why we're fighting for them, that totally got lost, which has resulted in really 2 generations of leaning more towards independence. So we're doing partisan voter registration. We're raising money, with your help, we're raising money to do partisan voter registration in North and South Omaha and on college campuses. So there's the voter registration piece, there's the trusted messengers at the doors. And then, we have to hit them online. As you know, Republicans have gotten very sophisticated at targeting messages. I can't tell you the number of times our kids are telling us about something they saw about Tony Vargas or Joe Biden on TikTok. So we have to match that fire with fire and make sure that we're fighting back real strong.
Yeah, I mean, the thing you raise about partisan registration, I mean, one of the reasons I founded Hopium, I mean, I ran a C3, C4, and we are C3s and C4s are so limited in their speech, in their political activity, and it's my view that we have too much of our infrastructure tied up in 501c3s and C4 organizations. And that we know why, right? For donors, they got a tax break. And so, and also they don't pay taxes on the activity. And there was a logic to it, but I think we've gotten too reliant on outside actors that can't do some of the work that we just need to do. And what it's done is that it's weakened the party infrastructure, also, and which is one of the reasons why here at Hopium, we're putting state parties front and center in front of folks with Anderson Clayton, who people have loved and adored and been so, I know she's so amazing, and who have felt so good about those investments. Anderson came on just a few weeks ago and updated everybody on what she was doing with the money we had raised. And it was great to hear and how granular it was. And it was all going into the field, right? All of it was going in, at least for her, that's where she was putting our contributions. And and I think you're going to see in North Carolina that we're going to, this thing she's building there, it's going to be 1, 2, 3 extra points for us in this election, an election that will be very close, So I'm also really glad that we've been able to start to shine a spotlight on the need for people to be investing more in state parties, believing more in state parties, putting them at the center of our understanding of how our politics works. And so, being able to bring on one of the great state party chairs in the country, long serving, by the way. How long have you been serving, Jane?
Since 2016, yep. and I got elected 3 more times, so my term is actually till the end of 2026. Yeah, so I will be the longest serving party chair in the state of Nebraska.
You're formidable force, Jane. And tell us also about how's the Biden campaign showing up? Are you feeling them? Are they bringing staff in? I mean, what's their approach to the Blue Dot?
Yeah, we're really excited. It's actually been a great relationship with the Biden team. So we have a state director. We have 2 senior advisors on the ground. One is actually our executive director. I really advocated for her to have a dual role. Her name is Precious McKesson. She was the elector who cast the electoral vote for Biden last time around. So she's one of their senior advisors. And that really will be a significant bridge, to your point about the state party infrastructure and the campaign infrastructure, working hand in glove is critical. Meg Mandy, who's a senior advisor to Tony Vargas's campaign, is a senior advisor for the Biden campaign. And they're building out their field team right now. And so many times, as you know, too often presidential campaigns come into our states, they want us at maybe visual events, but they don't talk to us about strategy, about opinion leaders. They don't even sometimes share office space with us, which is just mind-blowing when you talk about needing to get volunteers their walk packets and yard signs out. So we're co-mingling in a office space together. So it's all really working hand in glove. And then it's really us relying on them to do the GOTV, but them relying on us to do some of the programs that we know work. We know our vote by mail program that we developed in 2016 when I was chair, that is a strong program that turns at least 3 to 5% more Democrats out to the polls. We also run a program called Block Captains because volunteers told us precincts were getting too big for them, too much of a responsibility. So we broke it down to 50 doors in their neighborhood. We know that turns out at least 8% more Democrats. And then we're running what we call a voter guide program. Sometimes because our state parties aren't resourced, Simon, they can't do the basic nuts and bolts of voter registration, getting volunteers at the doors, and voter guides. We literally do a voter guide for all 93 counties that lists every single Democrat, whether from president all the way down to weed board. So voters know who the Democrats are on their ballot because a lot of these races are nonpartisan. So The Biden team has been great because they're listening to us, they're taking our advice, they're, making sure that we're at the table in those decisions, and they're not ignoring the dirt roads. The second congressional district, while is Omaha, very city, it has a rural county attached to it through redistricting called Saunders County. Lots of dirt roads, lots of farm ground, lots of ranches, and they're making sure that we're going on those dirt roads as well.
And tell us about Tony Vargas's race. I mean, how's your assessment of that race? And I'll say, everyone, that we've endorsed in 12 House races. All of them are pickup opportunities. There's no incumbents in the group. We don't really like to do incumbent. Incumbents are, in our view, can take care of themselves, and we need to help the newbies, get out there. It's where your money and your work goes much further, I think. And so Tony's one of the 12 that we've endorsed, and the goal here is if we win those 12 races, we win the House, period. And and we will flip the House. How do you feel about that race? Give us your assessment of what you see so far.
There's real good momentum, and there's some interesting dynamics happening on the ground. That was not the case 2 years ago when he took on Bacon. So first, he only lost by about 5,000 votes last time around. So this is literally razor thin campaign, which is why voter registration and our base turnout is super critical. He is a Latino state senator, served for 8 years in our state legislature. He was able to work with other senators like Terrell McKinney from North Omaha, the Black community, to bring over $250 million back into North and South Omaha from Biden's infrastructure bill, I will add, ARPA bill. So that money is gone back into the community to help small businesses, to help nonprofits, to help build infrastructure. People know that Senator Vargas and McKinney were responsible for that. Bacon is essentially trying to find his footing, and that's remarkable for an incumbent who's been lifted up as some type of moderate. But what's happened in Nebraska, and it's happening in other states too, is the MAGA Republicans have totally taken over the state party. And the state party basically has no money. They have gone back to talking points saying it's their responsibility to do a platform and to support their county parties. They don't get involved in elections. When in previous years, Pete Ricketts and other big donors would essentially, foot the bill for all the races in the state. And when it was always obviously a huge burden on our state party. But now, we have more money than the Nebraska Republican Party in a state that is dominated by Republicans. Bacon has removed all of his very right-wing talk on abortion on his website because he knows in poll after poll that is a critical issue, that not only women, but the men who support and adore us want to make sure that we have rights to our reproductive freedom. And Don Bacon is on the record of being 100% pro-life and making, he's made lots of statements that obviously Tony Vargas and us as the party are going to continue to remind voters of where he's at. And then he continues to try to take credit for the work that Joe Biden and the Democrats have done, whether it's the airport funding or whether it's the $35 insulin. And so as the party, and obviously Senator Vargas will as well, keep him accountable. So Bacon, I think, essentially is at risk. He had a primary opponent, and the state party hasn't even endorsed Bacon. They endorsed his primary opponent in their primary, and they haven't endorsed him yet for the general, and they probably won't. And so he has maybe like 15% of the base who will definitely go to the polls and vote for Trump, but may skip the race of Bacon and Vargas. And so that's going to be something that we're watching. We're not only, of course, relying on that, but that's an interesting dynamic at play right now on the ground.
Listen, to your point, and I talk about this all the time in my national commentary, as somebody who's worked in national politics for over 30 years, who's done presidential campaigns that are largely run through the state parties. I mean, people don't really understand that, the bulk of the money of a presidential election goes through the DNC and the state parties, and 80-90% of the staff work for some version of a party here or there, right? This is the lifeblood of a presidential campaign in our electoral system. And so the dysfunction that we're seeing at the RNC, the lack of hard dollars that they're being able to raise, the struggles that exist in these state parties. Now it's Michigan, Arizona, of the other battleground states. There's Pennsylvania's had some problems. The Nevada Republican parties had these structural problems you're describing at the state party level is a much bigger deal than people really understand. I mean, you're talking about something that could easily be 3 to 5 points in the election, depending on what happens, because they're not raising money. They can't hire staff. They don't have, and the thing is this is what I keep saying about Trump is that Trump can't, building a presidential campaign is like building a battleship, right? And it's just too late for them to be able to build a kind of campaign that we would recognize as being a serious ground-based operation. They're going to try to make it up with TikTok videos and national media, right? But in terms of the on-the-ground stuff you're describing, it's not going to happen in the way. I mean, this is going to be the weakest on-the-ground Republican campaign that we've probably seen in modern times. And this is really going to matter. And it's a little surprising to me that I've struggled so much with national media to get them to understand the significance of this stuff. And I'm glad you told us that story, because this is being replicated in other critical states that we need to win. And I am, by the way, in terms of our state party love, I am going out to Wisconsin in 2 weeks to do an event with Ben Wickler. I know, I'm very excited about that. And I just did an event. I flew out to Arizona and I was a keynote speaker at the Maricopa County Democratic Party's 100th anniversary event. So I have to do a lot of stuff, but the people from the party's call, I come running, that's
you got to come to Nebraska.
I will.
You have a really good steak and that you're treated well. Hopefully you're a steak eater. If not, we have lots of good vegetables.
I'm a steak guy. No, I'm a steak guy. I'm the grill guy at our house. Other sorts
of good things. So
I'm the grill guy at our house. There's no question about that. And even though my middle son is a professional chef, I still usually cook the steaks. He's been trying to take them away from me, but we're working on that. Anything else, Jane, before we go? I mean, you've been phenomenal. I'm so proud of you. And, listen, everybody, this really matters. I mean, it matters for two reasons, right? For all the reasons we discussed, but it also matters in sort of the daily psyops that is happening. What's happening now is that Republicans are trying to do what authoritarians do all around the world, which is they want you to believe the election is over, that Trump is this titanic figure, that he's winning the election. You hear him even in that Fox interview. He's like, the polling today is better for me than it's ever been, which is, to use the term we like to use in politics, total bullshit. And the election's very close and competitive. He's raising unbelievable amounts of money. The crowd sizes are huge, right? They are trying to create this impression of bigness, power, strength. And what I think is going to happen in the next, my instinct is about what's going to happen is that within a few weeks, we're going to be marginally ahead in Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. And then the question will be, is that enough for Biden to be ahead? And I want then the focus to be on Jane and all the work they're doing, because then we can say, yes, we're at 270, we're not at 269. And if we're at 270, then Biden's leading and he's winning the election. And I think that's going to be very important as part of the psychological aspect of the game here, that the Republicans play very hard and that we need to be a little bit more savvy about, I think, in the way that we play it. It's a central reason why, I think much to the chagrin of my audience that I write about polling so much, because I think we're all sick of this stuff. But it actually is in many ways the central battleground of the election right now. And the truth is we are far more likely to be in a stronger position in a few weeks than they are. And part of that story is going to be the story of Jane and her amazing work, and the Nebraska Dems who get it done again and again and again in pretty challenging circumstances. So, Jane, any final thoughts for everybody? Any final pitch you want to make to folks?
I just want folks to know, I obviously knock a lot of doors and at a lot of events in the cities and in our rural communities. And there is this real hunger from voters to have stability and to have a government that actually works for our families again. And reproductive rights are definitely heard loud and clear at the doors, as well as climate action, as well as, unions and working families. And I think all of the issues that our party, the core of our party, is about helping people. And that is a message that is going to cut across all of the noise and chaos that Donald Trump is trying to inject into this election cycle. So no matter what you feel when you see Trump and all the MAGA folks on TV or on your Twitter feed, know that the real hope and power is on the ground, is in the field, is in the state parties, is in the daily infrastructure that may not be sexy to some, but I find incredibly exciting because I know that that's what is going to win this election. And then we're going to be able to help more people. So thank you. And whoever wants to come to Nebraska to knock doors, to pet a cow, whatever you want to do, we will make sure that you have a place here and something to do to help us get not only Tony Vargas over the finish line, but to make sure that we get that Joe Maha blue dot again.
Jane, my dear friend, It's great to see you again. I know I can't believe we haven't talked in so long, but I'm so proud of you. I knew you when you were in your early 20s, right? And when you were
I was
headed,
so young.
I know, the Young Democrats, and we became buds. And I was so impressed with her and her leadership and her skills. And I think everybody can see why all these years later. But Jane, thank you. Good luck. We're excited to be a partner in this fight with you. Everybody, please donate if you can volunteer for Jane remotely, write postcards, whatever you can do. Your dollar, your time goes so far here in Nebraska, much further than many of the other options that we have that we're focused on right now. So please give it serious consideration and let's go help Jane bring the blue dot home. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.